Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Daydream Nation, and today I've got a very special guest. I've got Andee Blacksugar. How are you, mate?
I am well. I'm keeping the frost out of my hair, so to speak. But it's a chilly, wintry Brooklyn holiday week. But I'm here to talk about the Dam. So all is
Fantastic,
well.
and we're going to talk about the Dam. And just to introduce Andee to the channel, he's got a wonderful YouTube channel, Patreon. Check it out, Black Sugar Transmission. Andee plays for KMFDM. Lot of stuff. Please check it out. It's wonderful. And he was also a guitarist for Blondie, which did a tour that was supported by, incidentally, the Damned. So really good to have you on, Andee, and hopefully we can even have some more chats beyond this. I really like your stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a mixtape. So it's impossible for me to pick 5 favorite songs. It's just like pulling something out of the air. So Andee will pick his 5 songs that he would like to put on a mixtape and explain why he would choose these songs. I will do the same. And yeah, take it away, Andee. What's your first pick for our mixtape, The Damned?
All right. I'm going to play the riff.
I like it.
My first song. So Wait for the Blackout is my first pick. That's my number 5. Kind of a Rick Nielsen-esque guitar riff there. Do you think he had been listening to Cheap Trick? Kind of sounds like, the...
Interesting.
So, I mean, it's not like Rick was the only one that ever used that kind of open string. That particular kind of, I think Jimmy Page did something like that as well. Anyway, not to get in the weeds about the origin of the riff, but I just think it's a great opening song. When I toured with them, they opened their shows with that song every night, and it always whipped the crowd into a gleeful frenzy.
Yep.
It's just a fun kind of ode to nocturnal living. And I love it as an opening song for the Black Album, which is, I feel like it's the first time they got to kind of grow into their ambitions as a really eclectic bunch of music heads and songwriters. Yep. And Paul Gray's in the band, who's like a really great musician. And a really great songwriter on his own. One of the things I love about Wait for the Blackout is it sort of has this, I guess it's a bridge section where they bring in these bells, and it's sort of very pompous and grand sounding, but it's in a really cheeky way. Because of course it's the Dam, so they don't take themselves seriously at all. So, but it gives you a sense that this album is going to be like kind of, maybe a little bit more orchestrated, maybe have some sonic surprises in it. And of course that album does. So that's my first choice, Wait for the Blackout.
Oh, fantastic pick. I always, when I listen to that song, I sort of see that's a precursor to Britpop, because I can hear, because it's very English sounding, just the vocalizations, and you can hear a lot of Blur picked up of that sort of, the harmonies and the melodies. It's not far out of I think they were Britpop before Britpop, and that album, a lot of people say it's very psychedelic, but I think it's kind of a 1 or 2 generational precursor to Britpop. So I think it's a great song because they were really getting into their pop sensibilities. One foot was definitely in punk, but they were looking into different wheelhouses and different adventures and writing well-crafted, what you could regard as pop songs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting take. I hadn't really thought of that before, but I think there's probably something to that. I wouldn't be surprised if Pulp and Blur and those bands listen to The Damned. You know, that it's got to be a given, right?
Absolutely. And you know, a couple of points or takeouts with what you said. Paul Gray had so much to that band. So every time they come to Australia, I see the latest lineup, and he's back on bass, and you could hear was just a lift to the band. They played so much better with his bass playing. He is just magnificent, and you know, he adds so much from a songwriting and a musicology point of view to the band.
Yeah, I agree. And luckily, he was in this lineup that I toured with, and I got to pal around with him a little bit. And I found out that his tone, the tone that he's got on this current tour, is all coming from this Doug Pinnick fly rig pedal. So he's got the King's X bass tone, which is kind of cool. But yeah, he's just got like a really slippery, fluid style, and he's got that. You know, he plays with the pick, so it's very aggressive. But he's also just got like a really, I don't know, a really slinky, effortlessly fluid kind of style, and he looks that way on stage too. He just moves very easily. He's really fun to watch.
Yeah. No, he just added so much to that band. All right, great pick. My next one is off the classic first album, Damn Damn Damned, and it's Neat Neat Neat. I think it's just 2 minutes 40 seconds of chaos. It's a Brian James classic. It starts off with the propulsive bass playing of Captain Sensible, and then you've got Brian James' sublime guitar playing. And Andee, I mean, the Fab Four got back this year and did a series of concerts in the UK. I would chop off an arm and a leg to go over and see it, but I actually was able to secure the soundboard recordings, and I've been playing it in my car, and it's all of the concerts, you know, off the soundboard directly, and they are on fire. And one thing you realize how good Brian James was a guitar player. So Brian James left the band, and they put Captain Sensible in, and he's just as good. If you know, he's a fantastic guitar player. So they substitute one guitar player for another brilliant guitar player. They're just musical geniuses everywhere. But I would have just loved to have seen them, and they were on fire. But getting back to Neat Neat Neat, I love that song. It's just direct, it's punchy, and I love the machine gun vocal delivery of Dave Vanian. And it's a song that's been covered. It was covered by Elvis Costello and a few others. And one more thing, Rats Gaby's on drums. I love him. I think he's one of the best punk drummers. He's very influenced by surf rock and those little fills. And when you listen to this album, you know, off the soundboard, or you can hear that Rat is having the time of his life. It's like he's had the kit and the house, you know, the covers, and he's finally bringing the car out, and, you know, he gets to play again, and he's just absolutely magnificent. Anyway, that's not my first choice. Neat, Neat, Neat.
All right. Well, that's my number 4. So, I agree with everything you said. It is amazing that Captain Sensible, I assume he wrote that bass riff for Neat, 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 which is an amazing riff. Really unusual riff. I won't play it, but it's an odd little weirdly chromatic thing. And of course it's immediately recognizable. It's, you know, it's as iconic as, the intro to Ace of Spades or something like that. So, but it is amazing that somebody like Captain Sensible starts out as the bass player in this band, and then he just kind of steps up as the guitar player. And guess what? He just happens to have all this guitar playing firepower just like in his back pocket. It makes me think of, like when Martin Gore took over the songwriting duties in Depeche Mode, like their main songwriter leaves after their first album. And Martin's like, well, I guess I'll give it a shot. And it turns out he's one of the greatest songwriters of his generation.
100%.
Who knows if he ever would have dug into that bag of tricks, with things the way they were. So yeah, I love about Neat Neat Neat. I could have put New Rose in this slot as well. I wanted something from that first album that just shows the kind of the pie fight aspect of the Damned. It's the sound of that front cover. It's just, it's chaotic, it's dangerous, but it's mischievous. It's a lot of fun. It's just hang on and have a really high energy joyride for 2 minutes or whatever, and it's over. And it's just a little bit of a hand grenade, it's over and done with pretty quick. And I guess I would have put, Love Song is kind of one of those as well. Oh, hang on a second. All right. Probably an Amazon delivery or something. So yeah, I think everything you said, plus, just the fact that I wanted to get a Brian James entry in here from that first album.
Yeah, no, it's killer. Another thing I wrote and I forgot to mention is there's a little bit of classic rockabilly. If you strip it all down and you listen to the guitar work, I was listening to guitar lines and it sounds like a little bit of early 60s rockabilly. So it's just one of those songs that's just got a variety of genres just within that, 2 minutes and 40 seconds. But no, yeah. It's a killer track.
It has a bit of swing to it for sure.
Absolutely. Well, sorry I stole your song. Do you want to throw another one? Because that was sort of my pick. Just go to the next one and then I'll take it after that.
Sure, yeah. Let's see. What do I have next? That was 4. Okay, number 3, In Dulce Decorum. So this is a song. Let me see if I can manage, if I can fake the
off
intro
the Anything album. There you go.
Off the Anything album. Just when you hear the first notes of that song, it's unforgettable. It's so iconic and it's so stirring and dramatic.
I think it's a little bit baroque with the harpsichord bit, when that little harpsichord run. Yeah.
Yeah, all the detailing in the orchestration and the arrangement with all those keyboard sounds, it's so lush. I wanted something from that MCA Records period. Alone Again is a great example of them in this Baroque kind of lush cinematic period. But that's a cover song, so I wanted to talk about one of their songs. And this is it's a very, very serious song. The lyrics are basically, well, I guess they're based on a poem, but the poem, I believe, was written by a World War I soldier. And it's from the point of view of a soldier writing to his mother, and it's pretty dark, but it's just a beautiful piece of songwriting and arrangement. And I love that they just went for this widescreen goth frilly shirt kind of thing. They just jumped in with however many feet. How many people were in that band? I think four or five, and bring that lineup. Oh, was it? Did they? Oh, Roman Jug played keyboard.
Roman Jug was in it. You had Rat Scabies and Dave Vanian.
And Roman Jug does that sort of counter vocal in the song as well. Yep. So he's sort of he's sort of filling in for Captain in that way, because Captain was always a cool vocal foil.
And Roman was originally the keyboardist, so he got drafted in. See, that's the story of the Damned. You have all these players change positions because it just shows the versatility.
Absolutely,
they just move.
Yeah. So that's my number 3.
That's a great pick. Oh, look, my 4th pick was actually Alone Again, because I think that's a magnificent cover song, and the Damned do wonderful cover songs. I could have chosen Help, which I love. I could have chosen White Rabbit, which is just off the charts. There's plenty more cover songs that they do, but I actually prefer this song to the original Love version. I love it that much.
Yeah, me too.
So it was off this. This is the Anything album, and you can see it's all very psychedelic. There you go.
I think
they're all in their levers. So this was just coming out of the Goth smash for them, which was Phantasmagoria. And I saw them. They came out to Australia in '86. And Dave Vanian had he was trying this different look. He had he was dressed up as a matador. So he's always a bit of a shapeshifter. So he's wearing the Spanish matador gear, and he had the hair all tied back, and he had the little Mexican moustache, and it was completely different to what I was seeing on this album cover and the preceding album. Yeah, some of the sounds they couldn't quite replicate. I know they had problems with some of there's a lot of programming on this album. Yeah. And I think they had some problems with some of the synth lines and, just trying to replicate it. But I still think it was a fantastic concert. It was something that memorable, but that cover song, I just think it's just wonderful. And I think it's better than the Love version. Maybe I'm contrarian. So
I mean, it's very, I think they were very faithful to it. I hadn't heard the Love version prior to hearing the Damned version, so I wasn't really aware. So I kind of went into it backwards. But when I heard the original version, I just thought, oh wow, they just completely forensically replicated this, but with their own kind of 1980s, slightly more gothic, kind of window dressings around it. But it's basically a really, really respectful cover.
Yeah, and I prefer it to Eloise, actually, because I guess the record company, I don't know if it was their decision or it was the record company decision, but Eloise was such a smash. Let's do it again. Let's go to the 60s and mine that. Another thing I want to say is I think Dave Vanian, his vocal mannerisms and is very much like an artist called Scott Walker. Are you familiar with Scott? A lot of people were influenced by him, David Bowie, Brian Ferry, the list goes on. And you can hear he just croons over this song. And he's very much that sort of drama. And it's faithful, but it has the damn stamp on it. So, that's my pick. All right. What's your next one?
My next one is sort of an alternate cut from, I believe, the Machine Gun Etiquette. First of all, my introduction to the Damned was a compilation album called The Light at the End of the Tunnel. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, the MCA. It was kind of a best of wrap up. Yes.
Yeah. So I still think that's a great place to start because it covers their first 10 years, but it's not just like a boring chronological kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's really sequenced with like a lot of energy and the songs just kind of smack one right into the next and it bounces around in the different eras of those first 10 years. And it kind of plays like a DJ set. And it also has some of these non-album tracks, like the one that I'm about to mention, which is Rabid or Rabid. Like I call it, I sort of, I don't know if is that like a British thing to pronounce the word rabid, or is that just rabid, how they do it in the song?
They're Rabid for You. Isn't it called Rabid for You? Yeah, I know the song. I love it.
Yeah. It's just a really, that song always just jumped out at me. It's kind of, it's sort of a clever, it's got that thrashy kind of like high octane quality to it. But, there's some really nice keyboard touches in it that are kind of dreamy, and there's either a distorted bass or a distorted synth, or it sounds like it could be a blown out, oversaturated horn or something doing this, these little accents. So there's like these really weird kind of
like car
details
horn type
were in it.
things. Yeah, it was like, yeah, and then it
Yeah,
sort of repeats. The song's in my head now, Andy. It's, that last bit at the end. Yeah, it goes bonkers, absolute bonkers, that song. Yeah.
yeah. It's just I really love the way the song is structured, and then how it kind of gets into, they kind of cycle this part at the
Mm,
end, and it kind of just spirals into this kind of guitar solo freeform
mm,
jam at the end, and it just eventually it just stops, like someone just pulled the needle off the record.
yeah.
um
Yeah, it's really interesting how the Damned all had their own different sort of distinct personalities, even the original four. So you had Dave Vanian, who's the man of mystery, and I don't know if you sort of had any dealings with Dave, but he comes across as very sort of he's sort of, yeah, very mysterious. But he's got the goth persona, the Dracula persona, and then you've got Captain Sensible, who he's roots are very psych. He loves psychedelic rock. He loves classical rock, and he puts that sort of musicology into it. And then you got Rat Scabies, who's like punk, but he loves surf rock. And then you got Brian James, who's a bit of a punk rocker as well. And but with all these wonderful guitar lines. So you've got all these outside influences jammed into this band. And I think it's really sad that this band is so underrated. Like
yeah,
you had the big three. You had Sex Pistols, The Clash, and the Damned. But the Damned are the ones that don't get spoken about. The other two, they get the glory. They get the they're not that it matters. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and all the sort of the Rolling Stone accolades. Where the Damned sort of, I think they've got this sort of persona of being the the joke, not the joke band, but a little bit not serious. But if you look at their lyrics and their music, they're deadly serious, and they're kind of like a
yeah.
Trojan horse.
I I remember reading, I think it was John Lydon's first book, and it's sort of like an oral history kind of thing, of the early days of the Sex Pistols and all that.
Mm,
And I swear everybody was just disparaging when it came to the Damned. Like, all the people that were, sort of contributors to that book were always just so disrespectful. And I could never understand that. To me, this band, they outlasted all the others. They have much more of I would say, like a consistently high quality catalog. I mean, obviously the Sex Pistols have one album, so that's not even a catalog. With all due respect, the Clash had an amazing, whatever, 5 albums, or a very short catalog. And the Damned sort of had this, like you say, kind of a shape-shifting, fascinating journey, but
yes.
always with this really high quality songwriting. And also it always just sounded like they were doing what they wanted. It never felt like they were chasing trends. I mean, they kind of cottoned on to the goth thing, but they were right there at the beginning of that as well. So
Absolutely, they kind of been semi-responsible for creating that look. I mean, they've got some really hardcore champions. I know Henry Rollins goes gaga over the Damned. He is a collector of their records, and if you look at his shows, he puts massive bids on eBay for some obscure Damned first 3 album first pressing. He loves them. Green Day are big fans. They've got a lot of champions, but maybe it's a couple of generations that need to catch on to them. But at the time, they were kind of widely derided, and there's still that stigma. I was reading this really rank in sort of critique from The Guardian of the UK, where they did a review of the Damned's comeback show and said, they never could play their instruments, and just really disparaging. So there's still this sort of snobbishness, looking down at them as not really being that great. And it's a bit of a head scratch, really.
As far as not being able to play their instruments, one thing I love about them is that they actually can really play their instruments, but they never got too proficient where they just suddenly turned into, you know, kind of a boring, professional sounding, you know. They always had like that danger, and there was always a rawness, you know, like when I think about Motorhead, they started out like that. They started out with this kind of like, you know, Runaway Train kind of, you know, the wheels are coming off the wagon kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And when they coalesced into that last lineup that they had, they just got tight and proficient, and they didn't sound really particularly reckless or chaotic anymore. They just kind of settled into this really kind of tight, proficient machine. And I feel like the Damned have always maintained this level of just a little bit of chaos. You know, they never got so good that they lost that.
Yeah, and that's what punk needs, a little bit of chaos. But I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. All right. I think it's my turn. My next one was not off an album. It was a single, and this was the very last studio song that Captain Sensible recorded in 1984 before he left the band, and it's called Thanks for the Night. So I think you can see that.
Yeah.
I love this song. Should have been on an album, and I find it a little bit sad and melancholy because it's Captain's last song to pursue that sort of career, because he had a #1 hit with Happy Talk, and he was a bit of a star in the UK, and quite frankly was outshining the Damned, and he was going down that sort of wheelhouse. But this song is great. Rat's drumming is just a very unusual beat. It's just slightly behind the beat, but it propulses and, you know, moves the song along. Dave's vocals are sort of warm and crooning, and I just think it's great. But this song, I find it kind of melancholy when I think it's Captain's last album. Actually, Strawberries, I find a lot of that very melancholy. Maybe it's because it is Captain's last recording with the band, and going into a different sort of, I don't know what sort of mental state he was in or what he was going through. Yeah, I think there's just a lot of sadness and maybe regret in that album, and especially this song. It's kind of like a farewell song. Yeah. So that's my pick. Thanks for the Night.
Love that song. Love that song. I think they had so many great songs that even the non-album tracks are, you know, up there with the very best. Love that one. Okay, so I guess I'm up to my #1. So my #1, I'll play a little of it, because I think this is a good example of what separates the Damned from the Clash and the Sex Pistols and the Ramones. So they have this song goes. And it goes. So the Sex Pistols never would have done that. They would have never gone, first of all, from a major verse to a minor chorus. And to be able to pull out this chord, you know, that's just, you know, it is sort of, in a way, it is kind of a goth chorus, let's say. The verse is kind of like a happy, hand clappy, you know, kind of garage rocky sounding thing with the staccato organ. And I don't know. To me, that song, it has the quality of that kind of brash early Damned mixed with the songwriting acumen that was exploding, and it was about to really kind of come to full flower with the Black Album and Strawberries, where just really sophisticated stuff, but they packed it into these little kind of ratty, you know, these scrappy little punk rock tunes. And it's got a beautiful keyboard solo as well.
Yeah.
Do you know who played that? Did Captain play that?
I'm not sure. I will put that in the comments, but their Captain did a bit of keyboards, but no, I think that's a wonderful tune, and I think that really describes it. It's scrappy, but they just do these little melodic flourishes where it goes in a completely different direction, and you're just caught off guard.
Yeah.
Look, what a run of albums. What a run of albums. So you've got the first two, which are the punk. So you've got Damn Damn Dan, and then you've got Music for Pleasure, which is like punk as well. And then, they have those transitional albums like Machine, Gun Etiquette. Then you've got the Black Album, and then you've got Strawberries, and then you go into Goth. So they're sort of, it's like a wheel of popular music, just going from, just transitioning from one to the other, but they're still retaining their sort of anarchy and their punk and their anti-establishment all the way through. They're just blazing their own trail.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's what I love about that compilation album, The Light at the End of the Tunnel, because it bounces around and it all feels like the same band. It all has the same core kind of energy to it. It really is just amazing to me that they were able to venture into certain new territories without losing the essence of what they started out doing, and again, it goes back to that thing of just that the scrappiness is always there, and there's always a mischief to what they do, and they're underdogs, as we just discussed. So there's that quality too.
Absolutely. And, it doesn't help that they changed like so many record company labels, started with Stiff, went to Chiswick, ended up on MCA. There's probably record labels in between. It's just sort of escaped me. And then like for the last 10 years, a lot of independent labels. I think they're on Cleopatra, and then there was a self-funded label. They've really gone the long way, the long road. They haven't been like the Clash who were on, CBS or Sony, or Sony now.
The Clash were getting the proper push,
So if they had the right record label from the start, it may have been a whole different story, without a doubt.
They were on Dexter Holland's label for an album.
Variety.
Yeah. So
you were touring with Blondie, and you watched the Damned every night. Any sort of, what's your observations? Like anything you picked up, or sort of, anecdotes from those shows that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, there's one interesting factor, which is the Captain wasn't there.
Yes.
Captain didn't make it to the United States. I think he doesn't like vaccines.
That's true. So that's why he didn't make it into the US with the vaccines.
And when I heard that we were going to be touring with them, I was just over the moon. I was like, I'm going to be in their dressing room every night hanging out with Captain Sensible.
Yeah.
And turned out he wasn't there, but they had a guy who I became friends with, a guy named Troy, who's the guitarist of Queens of the Stone Age.
Yep.
He's been with that band for 20 years or so. And he did a really great job. I mean, he really took it seriously, kind of chasing the various tones of the various eras of the band and being able to authentically kind of, and he also has that thing too, where he's a great player, but he knows how to be messy and raw. So I actually, the first night I heard them sound check, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Like, it's fine. I loved that Paul was in the band. I really, really loved that. I don't think I had seen him play before. I'd seen the Damned a number of times. I saw them with Patricia Morrison on bass. And I saw them with a couple other guys. Monty on keyboards is always just a riot to watch.
Yes, he is.
He's such a goofball. And off stage, he's just like this quiet little sweet, unassuming guy. And then when he puts on his star-spangled, weird, goofy stage clothes, he turns into this like extremely entertaining keyboard player. And he's also, you put aside all the goofiness, he's a great keyboard player.
Yes.
He brings a lot to that band.
Yeah.
They had a guy named Will playing drums. So it wasn't Pinch, who was their guy for quite a while, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, a guy named Will Taylor, British guy.
Yep.
He did a great job. And Dave Vanian, what can you say? He is mysterious. I didn't chat with him very much. He wasn't really around a lot. So there were a couple times where I would find myself in their dressing room just chatting with everybody else, but Dave wasn't there. But he's always extremely cordial and
so he just turns up like 1 minute before showtime. He just hovers in, sort of thing.
Yeah, kind of. He kind of just breathes in.
Yeah.
But really, really nice. I mean, everybody was extremely nice. The whole band and crew.
Yeah.
I loved watching. I mean, they only played old stuff on this particular set. And I think that was wise because they were opening. It probably wasn't a hardcore Damned kind of audience. So they only played, a lot of the songs that we just named.
Absolutely. And did it go down well?
Oh yeah, always. Yeah. And when they go out and start with Wait for the Blackout, it was just like a firecracker going off. Yeah. Or maybe a Molotov cocktail would be more apt. But I mean, it was a cool pairing. It made Blondie look a little cooler just to be on the same bill with them,
Yeah. I think that was an inspired billing because when you shared that with the Contrarians that you were doing the tour, I just thought, wow, that is just an inspired bill, and didn't make it to Australia.
I know, sorry.
Oh well, maybe one day. But look, the Damn always come out, and I'm just hoping that because there's so much love for the Damned with the fans, because I'm on all their social media with the Fab Four back together, that they may be able to squeeze a couple of more gigs, and they might go to the States or come down to Australia, because there definitely would be an audience, because they're one of the few bands of that era that are all alive. They're ready. They can play. Even though Brian James looks a little frail, but just hearing him, he can still play. They can all play bloody well. But no, thanks for that. That's great little anecdotes. And that's like a little segue to my last choice. It's off the Evil Spirits album. Ooh. So this was their last album, or probably the second last album, because they did an EP, produced by Tony Visconti. So getting a heavy hitter, and you've got all the, Vanian, Sensible, Oxymoron, Grey and Pinch. And my one is Devil in Disguise. I really love that song. It's got Dave Vanian's growly vocals. In fact, I think his vocals get better as they get older. He's matured. He's sort of knowing how to project his voice and the different tones to use. The production on this album is epic, and it's what you expect of a Tony album. And I love the backing vocals. Another thing for the Damned that they use above a lot of punk bands is harmonies.
Yes.
Beautiful, almost Beatlesque 60s harmonies. So maybe that's what got up the nose with a lot of their contemporaries, because they were, they were sort of they were dabbling in a lot of Beatlesque melodies and major chords and harmonies, going to areas that, that hardcore, some of those hardcore, what you think is the Four on the Floor punk band should not be dabbling in.
Sure. But, absolutely. they weren't afraid to do things that sounded really pretty.
Yeah.
Or wistful, or, you
Yeah.
know, just all these secondary colors of them. Like punk was all just kind of black and
Yeah.
white. Yeah, they just had more of a wide palette.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do love the production on that album as well. It's really
Absolutely.
lush vocals too. Yeah.
And I think it's a transition album because it's an album that it goes back to the past. It sort of reminds me a bit of that Strawberries, Black Album, and maybe Machine Gun Etiquette. It goes back to that era. And he's really picked the sweet spot, especially when you've got the lineup and you've got Paul Gray in the band, because you can see he adds so much oomph and gravity to the songwriting. But this went top 10 in the UK, and yeah, I think it's great. People should just check it out. It's a really, really good album.
I agree. I thought it was really that was a really kind of a feather in their cap as far as just, you know, hooking up with Tony Visconti. I mean, you can't get, you know, in terms of just shoring up your cred as a band, you can't really do much better than Visconti, you know.
Yeah. And there's a couple of games you could play with the degrees of separation, like Mark Bolan, T-Rex, Final Tour. I would have loved to have been in a time machine and gone back to that. And Tony Visconti did all of T-Rex's, glorious albums. So, yeah, I think that the Dam would have been quite chuffed to be able to get Tony on board to produce that album. So,
sure.
Have you got any quick honourable mentions? Maybe if on this mixtape, you know, a bonus track. I've got one. Just to
well, I mean, I was going to mention something from Evil Spirits too. This one. The opening song,
Standing on the Edge of Tomorrow. That was almost going to be my pick. Yeah.
There's one from the Grave Disorder album. I think their millennial or post-millennial output has been really quite strong, but Democracy, they open with that a lot.
Yep.
That's a great song. Some other honorable mentions, man, I would throw out, I've always loved Nasty.
Yes.
The one that they did for the Young Ones.
Yeah.
And Ignite has always been a favorite, you know, the kickoff for Strawberries.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah.
I was going to pick Under the Floor again. I love that. I find it very moving, drama. And yeah. And it's another song that probably Blur and a lot of those Britpops sort of ripped off with the harmonies. But Paul Gray's bass, just magnificent. But when I did that show with Martin Popoff, that was my favorite album of that. But look, I like them all.
Yeah, it does sort of straddle everything really nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for doing this show, Andee. This is great.
Thanks for inviting me.
Like on a Wednesday morning, and talking about the Damned, I can't think of anything better to talk about. I could flap my gums for for hours and talk about the Damned, but we'll do a show again. I really enjoyed this, and please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. And Andee, check him out on Black Sugar Transmission, the YouTube channel. Is there anything else that you'd like to plug? Any other albums or anything coming soon? Shows?
Well, I'll be back on the road with Blondie in March. We're going to South America. Then we're doing some West Coast stuff in the United States. Then we're going to be in the UK in the summer. We've got a big show with Iggy Pop, a big outdoor show. Actually, the opening band of that show is a band called Generation Sex, which is half of the Sex Pistols and half of Generation X. So it's Billy Idol. Who was the other? Tommy James, is that right? From Generation X. and Paul Cook and Steve Jones. So 3 of the 4 Sex Pistols are going to be on that show because Glenn Matlock is still playing with Blondie.
Yep.
So yeah, KMFDM is touring a little bit in the West Coast in May. I got a lot of stuff, touring wise coming up. As far as my stuff, I'm Black Sugar Transmission on Bandcamp, not so much on Spotify. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Well, once again, thank you for being on the show. It was a gas just to talk about The Damned, and yeah, cheers and Happy New Year.
All right. Happy New Year to you, Peter.
And we'll catch you all soon. Cheers.
Sounds good.